Hold on. It's mad quiet. Where's my music? It's playing, but it's not. Oh, it must be on a different. Hold on, y'all. Oh, there it goes. How's everybody doing today? I hope all is well. I thought I was also going to be able to do a shared live today on Instagram. So I don't know if it's going to work. I'm still figuring this all out on my iPad. Let's see here, shall we? In the meantime, make sure to like the live, subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully I can figure this out. Let's see. I think I might be able to. And I don't know if I'm gonna have an issue with music. Just a second. Okay, I don't think it's gonna work, y'all. I don't think it's gonna work. I don't think it's gonna work. Let's see. Let's see if it works. I may have to turn my music off if I do it this way, but I may have to do it this way. Let's see. Bear with me, y'all. Bear with me. We getting there. We getting there. We getting there. Hello, how are you? We getting there. So tonight we are talking about procrastination, y'all. And I don't think it's gonna work if I do it this way. So I'm gonna focus on y'all. So we're talking about procrastination. Hey, Hiru. Hey, Melissa. Hello, hello, hello. So I'm going to be talking about procrastination tonight. It was in our poll, so thank you for everyone who actually voted in the poll today or this past weekend, because this was like by far, I think, a 67%, I think, of people who voted for procrastination. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I have 5 affirmations, and I'll probably just give you a bit of definitions also, just for what procrastination is, and just a few tips, mindfulness tips that I have for you. So it's a very interactive live. So definitely feel free to jump in and ask any questions. If this is your first time, my name is Debbie. I'm a certified mindfulness and meditation coach. If this is your first time to the channel, I post meditations, primarily affirmations, that consist of primarily breath work, affirmative meditations, not anything much more than that. And yeah, so this is the live that we just talk about different mindfulness topics. Again, tonight's procrastination. So what we'll do is we'll just start with the actual definition as soon as my stuff pops back up. Just a second here. Oh, here it is. Okay. So, defining procrastination. Okay. So, procrastination is the act of delaying or postponing tasks or actions that need to be done, often by choosing to do more enjoyable or less urgent activities instead. So, that's the basic definition that I came across, right? So, procrastination is the act of delaying or postponing tasks or actions that need to be done, often by choosing to do more enjoyable or less urgent activities instead. So procrastination is basically, and I think a lot of times when we think about procrastination, we think of it as just being lazy or just being laziness. But listen, my name is Debbie. Just being lazy or laziness. And that's not necessarily the case. Procrastination is oftentimes a trauma response. It's often a trauma response to our past experiences or environments. And it's a freeze response. So when you think about, you have these different stressors in your life and you have like fight or flight. Oftentimes you hear about fight or flight, but you don't hear about freeze, which is just basically you just stop and you don't do anything or you don't react, or you become stagnant or you plateau, and there's not necessarily any action that happens there after that. So understanding that procrastination isn't necessarily laziness, it's a trauma response. So it's usually a freeze response to overstimulation, a chaotic environment, confusion, being uncomfortable, whether it be uncomfortable physically or uncomfortable emotionally. It comes from a sense of uncertainty, oftentimes, lacking safety. And then also too, when it comes to procrastination, it's often used as a medicine, really, to kind of self-medicate ourselves when we find ourselves in those states of overstimulation or chaos or confusion or just uncomfortableness. So just understanding that it's not just associated with laziness. Now, it definitely can be laziness, right? It can't just be, I don't feel like, doing or whatever. But it definitely can also be a trauma response. Let me, just a second as I get rid of some stuff here. Just a second. Thank you, John. Bear with me. Let me just get rid of some stuff here because it's distracting. And I ain't got time for the foolishness, y'all. Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. So when it comes to the procrastination, so what I was talking about was overstimulation, chaos, confusion, uncomfortability, or uncertainty. Lacking safety is also another one, whether it be like safety personally, like within your physical safety, or safety emotionally, right? It's also a matter of avoidance. If you are a hyper avoidant person, you probably procrastinate a lot, right? So it's a matter of avoidance, delay, postponement, or a form of stress relief often, whether it be stress relief, again, physically, or stress relief emotionally. One thing that we neglect to think about when it comes to the consequences of procrastination is that it actually leads to more stress, leads to more anxiety, feelings of guilt and shame, and then just reduced productivity, right? So it definitely spirals and has it become more of a detriment to us than it is helpful, right? So yes, procrastination, thank you, Jordan, is definitely a big common piece of ADHD. Me being someone that actually has adult ADHD, it's definitely a big aspect to it. So I am in the middle of recovering from procrastination. Some of that is me actually being on this live right now, a part of that procrastination that I've had. But yes, it's definitely, and a lot of us have some symptoms of ADHD And we don't even know that that's what it is. So thank you for mentioning that. So yes, that's that. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything before we go into the affirmations. Um, Procrastination is a habit, right? So it's definitely a habit. It's not necessarily something that sometimes we take it on as a character. Like, this is a part of my character. This is just what I do. I know one thing I used to say a lot is that I work well under pressure, and I procrastinate because I do a better job when I work under pressure, and I can get things done when I know that I have a deadline that's the next day or whatever. At the end of the day, you still know that there's a deadline, whether it's a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. So taking that as I work well under pressure and taking that on as a character trait, or even glorifying it to say like, ooh, like, I work well under pressure and I get things done and I'm still successful. But yes, are you successful? But you got a whole lot of cortisol and stress in your body consistently. And then you're wondering why you're having issues in other areas. So, and I say that as if I'm talking to myself, because that's what I have to say to myself every day. So understanding that it's a habit, it's a pattern, it's not a character trait. So taking on those bad habits as character traits is what prolongs it and what keeps you in that cycle of procrastination. So those are just my quick little tidbits and tips in regards to my research of procrastination. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and head into the affirmations that I have for you. So there's 5 affirmations that, if you struggle with procrastination, would be great starting point to help pull yourself out of it. If you never necessarily have used affirmations, feel free to use them however you wish to. If you are not sure of the language, you want to change around how it sounds, feel free to do so. If you just want to write them down and read through them, when you need them, that's perfectly okay. I like to put them on sticky notes personally and kind of post them up wherever I feel like I would need them. So feel free to do that. If you want to record yourself saying them or just recite them out loud on a day-to-day basis, just to kind of pull yourself out of the habit, feel free to do that too. So I'm going to go through all 5. I'll give you, a little bit more understanding of each affirmation. And then from there, if you have any questions or need me to repeat anything, definitely let me know, y'all. Again, very interactive. Talk back to me. Okay, so number 1. Number 1, I notice when I'm avoiding tasks and gently bring myself back on track. I notice when I am avoiding tasks and gently bring myself back on track. I'll say it one more time. I notice when I am avoiding tasks and gently bring myself back on track. It starts with noticing. Okay, it starts with noticing that you're doing it. Sometimes you may find yourself in situations where you're procrastinating and you don't even realize, you're not even aware that you're actually procrastinating. So it starts with noticing that it's happening. It starts with understanding when it's happening, because you may not procrastinate in a lot of areas, but then when it comes to specific tasks or specific areas of your life, and those are the areas where you heavily procrastinate, like just having some time to take awareness and really understand like where the procrastination is happening, when it's happening, and then most of all, why it's happening. Understanding why you are procrastinating. The answer may be different depending on the situation. It could be because of fear. It could be because of just, I don't know, like it's a lack of knowledge. It could be exhaustion. You're just tired. And you're not necessarily physically tired, but mentally tired. Sometimes we get into decision-making exhaustion where we just don't want to make any more decisions. I'm like, I made enough decisions today. I just want to sit down and do absolutely nothing, right? It's also understanding the difference between procrastination and your need for rest, because a lot of times it's valid. You're tired, you're exhausted, and you just can't do any more. That's one thing. There's another aspect of it is, am I being avoidant? And maybe asking yourself that question, like, am I being avoidant in this moment, or am I just really just in need of rest? and letting that gauge what you do next, right? So understanding why you're procrastinating, understanding when you're procrastinating, and noticing it in the moment instead of thinking about it in the after effect. So being present and noticing while it's happening so that way you can do something about it in that moment, right? So that's number one. I notice when I am avoiding tasks and gently bring myself back on track. Number one. Number two, I release the habit of procrastination and embrace intentional productivity. I release the habit of procrastination and embrace intentional productivity. I'll say that one more time. I release the habit of procrastination and embrace intentional productivity. So it goes back to it's a habit, right? So we have to break that habit. Okay, so release the habit of procrastination. We have to release it. We have to let it go. We have to find a way to break it, right? We already became aware. Now we are releasing it and we are breaking that habit. And then embrace intentional productivity. We have to be intentional about our productivity. We have to strategize. We have to plan. We have to make sure that we are being on top of our time management. We have to be strategic and we have to be intentional. And also, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're productive. A lot of times we're so busy, but we're so busy with tasks uh, that aren't necessarily necessary or as important or top priority. Talking about ADHD, that's like another aspect of it, is that we hyper focus on things that don't necessarily matter. So really being intentional about your productivity and again being aware, noticing and understanding like, okay, is the work that I'm doing right now, is it actually productive, or is it me being avoidant of what I actually need to do? I'm someone that does it all the time. I'll end up doing something totally different than what I'm supposed to do instead of staying on task because I'm avoiding the work that I actually have to do. Now, granted, there are times where you will have to take breaks, right? So sometimes I'll do something else in order to take a break, but remembering that that's a break, right? It don't mean that we pushing it off to tomorrow, or we pushing it off till next week, or we pushing it off to next month, or we pushing it off to the next season or the next year or whatever. So there is a strategy in giving yourself quick like breaks to do something else or do another piece of activate another part of the brain in order for you to give yourself a break to come back to it. Or sometimes we have to walk away from a task because we're not able to digest what we need to do, or we're getting frustrated, or there's an uncertainty, or we have to teach ourselves something in order to come back to it. I'm not talking about that. I'm more so talking about those situations, and those situations. That's the fact. We know those situations where we're just being 100% avoidant and we're not just moving forward and doing the task. So understand that you have to release the habit, know and understand that it is a habit, it's not a character trait, and that you have to embrace intentional productivity and plan and strategize based off of your needs and what makes the most sense for you. If you have to take do notes, if you have to write out lists or whatever, do that. I'm a list person. So if I feel myself being avoidant and it's not something that I can approach right now, I'll write it down on a list so that way it at least gets done in the day. It may not get done in that moment, but I'll put it on a list of things that I need to get done in that day. So just thinking of ways that work for you to keep you from being avoidant and procrastinating. That was number 2. Let me get a drink of water, y'all. Okay. Number 3, every small action I take brings me closer to my purpose. Every small action I take brings me closer to my purpose. Every small action I take brings me closer to my purpose. So really, it's not thinking about the large tasks. It's about thinking about the small tasks and taking those large tasks and breaking them down into smaller tasks so that way they're more manageable. They don't seem as crazy or overwhelming. And when you break them into small tasks, you can really think about what tasks are the easiest and start with those tasks first, right? So think about, breaking, I have this whole large project that I have to do. And a lot of times we procrastinate because we're looking at the large project versus us thinking about, okay, what does the process look like? And based off of the process, what tasks do I need to do to get through that process? And then based off of those tasks, what tasks can I do today? Whether big or small, what task can I get done today to get it done? And I can just, me being in school, thinking about papers, right? So when I have a large paper that I had to do, I just had to turn in several papers. All of them were over 10 pages, okay? All of them were over 10 pages. One was like 13 pages, and I think the other one was like 15 pages. So what I do is I think about, okay, I have this paper. I know it's due at the end of class. I have 10 weeks to get this paper done. What can I do in the process? Now, I see a long task of a 15-page paper with APA formatting and citations and all this other stuff. So what can I do now to help make sure that I'm able to get this done completely but not overwhelm myself in the process? So basically what I do is I start with a skeleton, right? So I'll take everything out of the syllabus that says, okay, make sure that the paper has all of this. I'll copy and paste that and put that into my paper document, right? So that's number one. I can do that on day one, right? I don't have to know anything about the information that I need to put into the paper. I don't need none of that, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll put it and I'll copy and paste all of that. So now I know in that paper everything that I need to have that paper be an A, right? Because I want an A, all right? So that's number one. I can do that day one of class, right? I can also format my paper, right? So I can take the time to put in my title. Even if I don't know what the title is, I can go in and just put in my title or whatever, right? So all of that, put my page numbers in, all of that. I can do all of that day one, right? Again, I have 10 weeks. Then as I'm going through the class, as I'm pulling, as I'm reading information or as I'm going through the documentation for the class, if there's any articles or anything that I come across that applies to that subject, which it most likely will, right? I'll pull that and I'll put that in my references page. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but I'll just put it in my references page. So by the time I get to like week 6, I got 10 references that I can refer to that I'm not actually having to go find references at the last minute. References is tedious, okay? So I'm looking at references throughout the course. And then by the time I get to week 8, when I actually have to start like putting everything and comprising everything together, I already have my references, I already have my format, I already have my what I need in the paper, and I can start just putting things in. And then as I'm start typing, I have this information, I know that I need a reference here. Let me just highlight that and just put, okay, need reference here. And then that way, at the end of me writing my paper, all I'm doing is plugging in references on the day before or a couple of days before. So like really just thinking about, now that was a large task, 15, 20 page paper, that's a large task. This info is helpful. You're welcome, no problem. But that's a large task, right? To write a 15, 20 page paper with all these extra formats and citations and all of that, right? But think about what you can do now to be proactive. And that's not just with a paper, that's with anything, right? If you're looking for work right now, what can you proactively do now to prepare you when you start the job, right? What are some things that you can think about so that way when you actually start the job, it's not that big of a stress or overwhelming. One thing that I did when I was looking for work is I still got up as if I'm going to work. Why am I going to get myself off of that sleeping schedule if I'm not working, right? So yeah, I'm still waking up at 7 a.m. I'm gonna do some resumes. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Because then when I start back work, it's not that big of a deal for me to have to, I'm like, all right, I gotta get back on this sleeping schedule and da-da-da. So it's about being proactive, right? And thinking of ways that you can be proactive that's not strenuous, that's easy. And then once you get the easy stuff done, that builds up the confidence to do the hard stuff. And a lot of times we procrastinate because we just think things are hard. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I don't want to do that because it's too hard. It's too much work, right? So just thinking of ways to motivate yourself and to psych yourself out and say, okay, I actually can do this if I start with this little thing over here and this little thing over here and this little thing over here. And by the time you get to step 5, then you're like, oh, well, I already did half of it. I might as well just keep going, you know? So really think through how your brain actually is processing information and what makes you want to get things done, what motivates you. Sometimes it's just the consequences of things. So if the consequences motivate you, then think about the consequences. Bring that up first. You know, okay, if I don't do this, this gonna happen. All right, I might as well go ahead and do it now, right? So I don't even know what one I was on, y'all, but I went on a tangent. Oh, every small action I take brings me closer to my purpose. Okay, number 4, I have 6 affirmations, y'all. My bad. Uh, Number 4, I teach myself better habits and allow myself to grow and improve each day. I teach myself better habits and allow myself to grow and improve each day. I'll say it a third time. I teach myself better habits and allow myself to grow and improve each day. Become uncomfortable with mediocrity. Mediocrity. Can't say it today. Mediocrity. Become uncomfortable with mediocrity, okay? Sometimes we are just too comfortable with being mediocre. And that's why we procrastinate. And that's typically why. We all have the ability for greatness, okay? We all have that ability. And sometimes because life beats us down so much, we end up just being in this mediocre state, and we become okay with that, right? And because we're okay with that, any extra work, anything that's a little bit, that's going to push us a little bit or push us to the point where we're actually working hard or we're actually challenged or we actually have a lot to do or think about, or we have to educate ourselves in a space, or we have to do extra work, that creates the procrastination. We're comfortable with being mediocre. And I mean, if you want to be a mediocre, okay, that's on you. But I strive for greatness, right? I strive for greatness. I strive to be the best version of myself. And maybe I'm not the best version of myself every day, but that's what I strive for, right? So if you are okay with being mediocre, ignore everything I just said, okay? But if mediocrity is not what you want to be, you have to get uncomfortable with that mediocrity. And if you get uncomfortable with that mediocrity, that will make you move. That will get you up. That will motivate you to keep you going. So just understand that you have to, again, psych yourself out and shift your mindset on how you think about the things that you're working on and the goals that you have and the things that you're trying to accomplish. And life is short, right? Well, and sometimes even when I think about it, life is long too. Okay, life is long, exhausting, tiresome. And do you want to spend your life in mediocrity, or do you want to spend your life in greatness? Okay, that's what I told myself. Because I procrastinated on going back to school. I knew I was supposed to go back to school a long time ago, but I procrastinated because I'm like, I'm 37, okay? 37. Going back to school and graduate school at that, and I gotta apply for it, and I have to do interviews for it, and I have to have like all these references for it, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do that. I gotta write papers to get into school to get approved. I gotta do all these things. I procrastinated. But then once I got in and I was like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is why I'm here. It took a whole pandemic and layoffs and and everything for me to actually get here when I could have got there a long time ago. So just really think about, the greatness that you want. Think about the goals that you want and what you want your life to look like. It's a possibility. We just have to get off our butts and stop procrastinating and just do what needs to be done. And if it's a small little step, for me to apply to school, I basically just started writing the papers. I had to write 3 papers to get into school. I just started writing them. And I'm like, I don't want to write these papers, but I'm gonna go ahead. And I got the first paper done. And I was like, okay. And I did the other 2 papers. I was like, all right. Well, I did the papers. I might as well submit them. So then I submitted. That was the easy part. And then it's like, oh, well, since you submitted during this time, we'll waive your fee. I'm like, oh, well, then I don't have to pay for it. Oh, I might as well just keep going. And then you just keep going. You just keep going. You keep going. And then now I'm 2 quarters in, 4 A's. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing it. So you have to take the first step. You have to you got to take that first move. Okay? So that was, what was that? Number 4. Yeah, number 4. So now we're at number 5. I release the need for everything to be perfect and enjoy the process. I release the need for everything to be perfect and enjoy the process. I'll say it one more time. I release the need for everything to be perfect and enjoy the process. Perfectionism is a lot of times what leads to procrastination. Okay? A perfectionist is a procrastinator in disguise. I'll say that again. A perfectionist is a procrastinator in disguise. Okay? Because of the fact that we want things to be so perfect, we avoid it. We push it off. We delay it. Or we do all of this planning, and a lot of times you can plan all day, but at the end of the day, if you just do it, sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to jump in. You just got to leap in. Okay? So understand that if you deal with perfectionism, and if that's a space that you really do struggle with, you're most likely going to be a procrastinator too, because of the fact that you allow that perfectionism to get in the way of doing. Okay. Now, granted, is there an element of you want things to be great, you want things to be perfect, you want things to work out, and you want things to work and be successful? Yes, absolutely. But at what point are you delaying because of the fact that you want it to be perfect? Or you're not moving forward because it doesn't seem like it's going to be perfect, or it doesn't look like it's going to be perfect, or the people that are attached to it are not perfect. Okay? So really think about, if you deal with perfectionism, is that your disguise of procrastination? Are you just pushing it off just because we want it to be perfect, or are you pushing it off because of other things? Okay. So also just understand that it also it's low-key arrogant too, because we kind of feel like, oh, we got time. That ain't necessarily the case. You don't know how much time you got. And it's not even about death. It's not even about that. It's more so of wherever the space that you're in, or the opportunity that you have. Sometimes we procrastinate on opportunities, and then our opportunities leave, and then now we're dealing with guilt and shame and resentment and regret because of the fact that we let these opportunities go because we're procrastinating, right? So just understanding that it's low-key arrogant to think that if you have an opportunity coming your way and you procrastinate on it, you think it's just going to be there forever, and that's not necessarily the case. So understand that perfectionism and arrogance can be a part of procrastination and why we're procrastinating. All right, and lastly, number 6, I forgive myself for past procrastination and focus on what I can do now. I forgive myself for past procrastination and focus on what I can do now. I forgive myself for past procrastination and focus on what I can do now. Forgive yourself and show yourself compassion on the situations from the past. Right? There may be situations in the past that you did procrastinate and you did miss out on an opportunity, or you did miss out on a blessing, or you did miss out on something because you procrastinated. You have to forgive yourself and think about what you can do in the now. Think about what changes you can make now. Think about how you can break the habit now, because more opportunities will come. Greater will come. Things will come, along the way that will be an opportunity for you to not procrastinate. And sometimes you have to think of it in that way. Like, oh, this opportunity came, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. This is an opportunity for me not to procrastinate. Okay? So think again, you know how your brain works, you know what's important to you, but take the time to think through those situations that you may have not forgiven yourself for, and forgive yourself for those things. And focus on what you can do now. Let's see. And then also to just take the time to understand the difference between procrastination and when you need your rest. I know I talked about that earlier, but making sure that you forgive yourself, but then also too, when showing yourself compassion, understanding when you need rest and when you're actually procrastinating, because that will help you be empathetic for yourself. And it will allow you to be able to distinguish, okay, I actually really do need rest, and right now I need to take a break, or no, I'm avoidant. I need to get up and get this done. Okay, so that is number 6. Let me just make sure that I didn't miss any other points as far as like advice on how to beat procrastination. One tip is to make it more enjoyable. Find ways to make what you're procrastinating on more enjoyable, especially for board tasks or redundant or mundane tasks that you have to do over and over again. The way that I do this, a lot of times, as I work from home, I throw on music. And I'll put on like my favorite playlist while I'm working. And typically, I may get up and just take a quick break and, listen and sing a song or whatever. Or I'll sing while I'm working. Listen, it happens. But that's my way of making things more enjoyable, especially with my job being so redundant as it is. My job is I do recruiting. So it's a lot of reviewing resumes. I'm looking at hundreds of resumes a week. So that can get bored sometimes. That can also get, sometimes it just gets to be too much where you're just looking at a screen. So just finding ways to make those tasks that are more frustrating or annoying or time consuming or just redundant. Find ways to make it more enjoyable. Educate yourself on a task. Sometimes we don't want to do the task because we don't know how to do it. Let's be real, y'all. Sometimes we don't want to do the task because we don't know how to do it. And that's just that. And because we lack the knowledge and because we're ignorant to whatever the task is, we avoid it, we push it off. Taxes. Listen, I push my taxes all the way up until the 15th, okay? Because I hate doing it. It's annoying. I don't want to pay nobody to do it, so I do it myself. But it takes me a lot longer than it probably would take a tax person. But I'd rather do it myself because I don't want to pay nobody to do it. So, but I push it off. So just educate yourself in the area. Maybe just one video or 2 videos on YouTube or reading one article can make all the difference from you completing the task. So if you're exploring, you're being more aware of the fact that you are procrastinating, you find the reason is because of education, spend some time in educating yourself and then come back to the task and see if it's more manageable or something that you're willing to do. Okay. And a lot of times just educating yourself builds your confidence to the point where like, oh, okay, I got this. This ain't even that bad. Redefine what success is. And again, understanding what what the consequences are. Those two are very important, because if you redefine what success is, your success may be the all the way at the end. But if you redefine success to be, oh, I just get this small task done, and then I'll just get this small task done, and then I'll just get this small task done, it's a lot more manageable and easier for you to get done, versus your definition of success being that all the way at the end result, right? When I was talking about the paper, you're looking at the 20-page paper instead of a success being you putting the skeleton in the paper, you know? So just really thinking about what success looks like and redefine that for yourself. And then also just, weighing the cost, understanding the consequences. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Also, just not allowing your task thoughts to linger for too long. If you know that you need to do something like wash the dishes, and you get up and you go to the refrigerator to get something to eat, a lot of times I'll tell myself, okay, if I'm going to get up and go get this popsicle that I want, I need to wash at least 3 dishes. And I'll be negotiating with myself. Don't judge me. So if I get up, I'm like, okay, you're already going to the kitchen, right? So if I'm going to the kitchen to get this popsicle or this ice cream sandwich, all right, then I can wash 3 dishes, right? So if I go there and I go wash 3 dishes, most of the time I'll get there and wash those 3 dishes and go sit back down with my ice cream sandwich, and I'll have me a nice little time. Other times I'll go and wash the dishes and do those 3 dishes and end up just washing all the dishes because I'm already here. Debbie, you already here, girl. You already here. You might as well just finish the rest of the dishes. So you have to psych yourself out sometimes, or again, breaking it into small tasks. It may be a big, long task for you to wash all the dishes at one time, but washing 2 plates in a cup, that's nothing. You can do that. So you may have to give yourself little tasks, even if it's something silly like that, One thing about me working out, I wanted to do, squats. I wanted to make sure I was doing my squats every day. Every time I went to the bathroom, I did 5 squats. Then by the time I got to the end of the day, I had 50 squats, right? So then it was like, it went from, Debbie, I want you to do 50 squats to I'm doing 5 squats every time I go to the bathroom, or 10 squats every time I go to the bathroom. And then by the end of the day, I still had my 50 squats done. It just broke it down in small little pieces. You have to break the habit. And that's the way that you break it, by even just breaking it down into small little pieces that may seem silly, but it will break your brain out of that habit of avoidance. And even if you're doing small, little, mundane things, it's not even about the thing. It's not even about the task. It's about your thought process. So if I can sit and I can convince myself to do 3 dishes, then I can convince myself to do 3 papers, or I can convince myself to get some of my stuff done for my business, or I can convince myself to do a lot of things. So just thinking about it, may be something small or silly as that, but hey, it works for me. I'm not perfect, but it works for me. And then I think that was all of them. I already talked about writing a list of your tasks. One thing about writing the list of your tasks is you may write down all the tasks you have to do and then look at the list and be like, oh, this ain't even that bad. I might as well just knock this out. Because a lot of times we'll overestimate all of the things that we have to do, and we won't really notice what we actually have to physically do until we write it all down. There's plenty of times where I was like, oh, I got all this stuff I gotta do all this stuff, I gotta do all this stuff, and then I write it down. I'm like, oh, all this is gonna take a good 30 minutes. It ain't even that bad. So that's another reason for writing out your list. It's not even about remembering, because yeah, you want to make sure that you remember all the things that you have to do. But a lot of times when you look at the list, you may see like, oh, this ain't even that bad. Or it's like, okay, this is a long list, but I can knock all of this out and these 5 things out in the next 20 minutes, So really think about, if you're a list person, writing lists out, so that way it makes it more clear for you. But yeah, that is it, y'all. Let me go back to the top for the affirmations. The first one was, I notice when I am avoiding tasks and gently bring myself back on track. Number 2 was I release the habit of procrastination and embrace intentional productivity. Number 3, every small action I take brings me closer to my purpose. Number 4, I teach myself better habits and allow myself to grow and improve each day. Number 5, I release the need for everything to be perfect and enjoy the process. And number 6, I forgive myself for past procrastination and focus on what I can do now. I hope these were helpful, y'all. I hope that this helps with your awareness and your mindfulness of procrastination. There will be a procrastination meditation that will be posted on Saturday. I was a little late this past weekend on the self-care one, but it's up. So there is a self-care, 10-minute self-care meditation that's already up that I posted last night. So make sure to check that out. And then the procrastination one will be posted on Saturday. And then we'll put up another poll for next week's live. So if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, please put it in the comments in this video. That way I know that I can use those topics for the poll. Otherwise, I'll just think of some stuff. And until next time, y'all all have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.